change in the fundraising sector has never been greater. But innovations in technology are evolving faster than our ability to understand them. Are these advances good or bad? Do they have unintended consequences? And what is the application to the global fundraising sector? That's what we're here to find out. Welcome to the Fundraising AI Podcast, your up-to-date resource for responsible AI for the global fundraising community, hosted by Nathan Chappell and Scott Rosenkrantz.
Hey there, we're back for another episode of the Fundraising AI Podcast. Feels kind of weird here to be in Geneva, Switzerland, out in public with like lots of things behind us. We haven't done this before, but
it's
good to be here.
Most public one.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get some fans jumping in the background or something.
I think there's a bunch of them here. So Scott and I are in Geneva, Switzerland at the annual AI for Good Summit that is part of the United Nations. It started 10 years ago. It's actually inspired by one of our friends, Neil Sahota, who we met years ago, and he's actually endorsed our book, Nonprofit AI. Actually spent a bunch of time with him last night today, but it's great to be here. This is a conference that originally was designed, I think about that 10 years ago, when the United Nations SDGs, so basically the items that are most important to, well, hopefully overcome in society, food insecurity, homelessness, education, environment. A lot of those SDGs were not going very well. And so 10 years ago, I think there was foresight to say, hey, AI is going to play a role here. And it's been kind of a mixed bag when it comes to actually, has AI helped or actually hurt some of those SDGs?
Yeah, I don't think they've made as much improvement even with AI as they would have wanted to, but it goes along with a lot of what we see, right? Just because you have AI, it doesn't mean that you're seeing success. Right? So it's all about how it's implemented, which is the purpose of this conference.
So nevertheless, this conference has grown quite a bit, even from last year, which I think exceeded all records by like 5x or something. From like 1,000 people to 5,000 people. And this year, they actually exceeded their fire code limits last year and put us all in danger.
At a new venue, a lot more people, a lot more tracks going on in terms of getting into quantum, like thinking ahead to the future of what's going to happen and how we'll be able to address it with future technology. So always looking ahead, but still trying to tie back to the SDGs.
And if you're watching the video version of this, we're actually sitting in one of the exhibit halls. There's three, but this exhibit hall is really focused more on robotics. So lots of creepy robots wandering around. One of them that is notoriously known to insult you. Don't know how that's AI for good.
Yeah, some SDG about not enough insults being thrown around.
Maybe there might be one. And then there's electric cars behind us, so it's gotten kind of weird. So all that to say, we're in an expo hall, but let's reflect a little bit. I mean, we've only been here 2 days, or you've been here 2.5 days. I've been here 2 days. I think just some observations so far, and knowing that we have 2 more days to go. Tomorrow is about AI governance for the most part. Actually, Friday is mostly about AI assisted robotics, and that gets into robotics in like even small farming application of drones, planting trees, of like all kinds of like, really interesting things. But so far, I think the conference kind of like tee up or the warm up has been about AI's influence in the world today and then what it will be in the future. What are your observations so far?
A lot of the impact on the workforce as well, right? What does it mean for people working, for employment, future state of employment? Again, we're still early in the conference, but last year there was a lot more interactivity about the governance and kind of bringing different voices and perspectives to the table to say, how do we do this collectively, getting multi-stakeholders involved? I haven't seen that yet. I think that maybe is later on in the conference, but I think it's less about governance, more on standards. So I'm still trying to like figure that out and where they're going with it. But like we saw last year, I mean, everyone's at the same stage, right? Everyone's still trying to like figure it out. They know that there's power. They're trying to apply it in different ways, identifying the use cases, but globally, maybe not seeing where they as much as they want to sit.
Yeah, I think one of the universal differences this year that I've heard just thematically in a lot of different conversations, even just with people, but also up on stage, was this movement. Actually, it was really, there's a good quote yesterday during one of the keynotes from Anna Marks, who's a Deloitte Global Chair, who said, this is an important time to recognize not just the pace, but the permanence of change. I think a lot more emphasis this year on humans, on adaptation, and moving from what they call moving from experimentation to deep reimagination. And so I think AI has been much more tactical in the last number of years, especially since we've started working at like more engineering focused, more specific, like from a technological perspective. And I mean, almost every conversation that I've had here so far is around people and culture, like this final acceptance that like, doesn't matter what tools you have, if people don't use them, it won't change.
Right.
And so I think this is where we see companies like OpenAI this week, basically saying that they launched a consulting practice. Had a conversation with AWS about this earlier as well. So it's just interesting how all of a sudden the realization is like, oh, adoption is actually stifled by the fact that people either aren't embracing technology because they don't understand it, or they're afraid of it, or whatever it might be. And so a lot more focus on that.
Yeah. And a conversation we had last night with someone else who was in this space, with our friend Neil, in this space, consulting with a lot of organizations, oftentimes AI becomes an IT focus.
Right.
There's technological, so it's going to be under the IT department. We talked about that with some of our friends in different woodwork hospitals, how it's got kind of been pulled away from the different departments and rolled under IT.
Yeah.
And it becomes kind of shut down.
Yeah.
Right. So it shouldn't be an IT exclusive program or project, right?
Yeah.
It's not about the use cases. So it's all about, like, again, talking about the internet, talking about electricity. Electricity is involved in everything you do. You don't think about how to use electricity that day.
Right.
But that's how it's being approached.
Right.
From
Yeah.
AI.
Yeah. So for sure. So in addition to like people and culture and that aspect of it, which is very different than last year, I think that's just become the new kind of thing of like, oh yeah, by the way, like we have these really impressive tools. They're going to continue to grow, but people need to know how to use them. What I think is super interesting, and I don't know if this is just by coincidence, but this week I spent time at the University of York up near Manchester in Northern England, doing a panel with a sociologist, 2 sociologists, and a philosopher and a bunch of nonprofit people. Super interesting. And then we kind of reflect on the US adoption, and we'll talk about this later, but basically there was a congressional hearing on AI adoption in the US and kind of where we're at from a US adoption and governance kind of thing. And then a conversation I had last night with someone from Mongolia, and I'm going to connect the thread here. But what this is like, the connection points between all those things is that I've realized the cultural, curiosity around AI is totally different between those user groups, and the technology is the same. So the UK and Mongolia and the US have the same basic technology, foundation models that are doing these things, predictive models are doing these things. But I'm in the UK and they're like, the US is basically kind of reckless and like going forward so fast. Like we need to really be measured in our approach to like walking into AI. And one of the PhD philosophers like won't use AI at all because he thinks it's actually going to destroy what is essentially human. So like, and we see that in the EU AI Act, which is, the first real truly like influencing international regulation on what AI is. And the US, which is basically, we don't have regulation, but we have now tech companies like Anthropic basically calling for regulation because they're afraid that without it, that essentially all bad things will happen and the US will overregulate. And then a conversation with a woman from Mongolia last night who basically said, why are you even talking about this? Like, just go. Like, we don't even think about it. We just go because we have like dire need to like do new things. We have a tool to solve a problem that is a foundational, fundamental problem. Like, that's irresponsible not to use it. So I realized that like in every culture, there's like anxiety around it, but the anxiety comes from very different places. In the US, the anxiety is about feeling behind or feeling like you're going to be replaced or just a FOMO around it. In the UK, the anxiety is around you're moving too fast. We need to like slow down and like be really thoughtful. And then I think the anxiety in Mongolia is like, we just can't get there fast enough. Like we just need more of it like now. And so I think that's just so interesting because the technology is the same in all 3 of those settings, but the culture and how we're looking at AI is very different.
But the access to the technology is the same, right? ChatGPT you can access in whatever country you're in, right? But where is the technology being built, right? If we think about some of our friends at Lucille Packard, right? They're in the center of Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
And they probably have that feeling of FOMO more than anyone else.
Yeah.
Feeling lost behind or feeling like they're falling behind than anyone else in the Walmart setting or any other, organizations they work with because they're so centrally located to do it.
Yeah.
Meta, to OpenAI, to Anthropic, to all these developers. Whereas in the UK, they're not coming up with their own, at least not in a large scale like that, like we're seeing. And then Mongolia, that's all like governmental driven.
Right.
So that's coming centrally and just rolled out equally to everyone without like competitive advantages or marketing.
Yeah. And I think one of the things is, I mean, data wins. And so we were talking to Neil Sahota again last night. Neil Sahota has, written several books. He's a IBM master inventor in which there's not a lot of. He's had like number of patents.
Advisor to the UN
He's
on
an
AI,
advisor to the UN. It's a big deal.
Title I've ever heard.
Yeah. And so talking about how far ahead China is in a lot of senses, one is because they have centralized data repository. So we always knew that would be, but it's also because where they are just moving full steam ahead and just like experimentation. Like, so anyway, it's really interesting. So I think that's one of my key observations is that technology is not going away. I think how we're looking at it, and in the US, we could talk a little bit about the fear factor, because we do see a lot of organizations, and I do think this is a bit more pronounced in the nonprofit sector, of like the slow to adopt is a little bit of like, well, we're a very human-centric endeavor as an industry. What is this going to mean for us? And do I still have a job? So we heard Mark Benioff yesterday, who was like one of the opening keynotes. He's a founder, CEO of Salesforce, basically saying, oh, that's basically, don't worry about it. We're not going to be replacing jobs. We're going to be adding jobs like all technology does. And
augmenting jobs.
Augmenting jobs. So they're like demanding more from the same jobs they have. So I think what he said is they're going to pause at Salesforce on hiring more engineers. They're going to hire more salespeople because they feel like humans are actually better situated in that role. They're going to pause on hiring more engineers until they've maximized productivity of all the team that they have, but they're not looking at layoffs. That's very different.
Support too.
Right.
Customer support.
Yeah. Customer support.
Yeah.
That's very different than what we saw a week ago or 2 weeks ago with Microsoft actually doing another round of layoffs. And there's a bunch of articles in the last 2 weeks around this. Microsoft laid off 9,100 people more than they had already done. That's 15,000 jobs in the last 60 days. If you look at that in combination with reports that are coming out about new students that are graduating from college. So my son, Toby, who works at Virtuous, he's a very talented data scientist. He has a master's in computational data science and math. He graduated, I forget, 4 years ago, and he took classes in machine learning and lots in math, but there was no generative AI. It was like an idea that they talked about loosely, but never like a paper that he had to write about it. What's foundation model, what it's going to do. Never took a class in AI ethics. If he had graduated today, there's basically a 1 in 5 chance that he would actually find a summer job this year. That unemployment with college graduates, 50% of computer science graduates this year. So we're talking about like, okay, well, don't worry about it. Like the job thing is not that big of a deal, but jobs that are essentially routine, basically the story here for everybody, if you're in a job that is routine, it's not enough just to get a little bit better at your job. It is like literally the time to upskill, like in not a little way, but in a big way, like go get another certificate because there's a million of them online in an area that will support your role, whether it's at a nonprofit and you're say prospect research, because we like to talk about prospect research, prospect development. It's like, go do your Amazon or AWS free certification or your whatever it is certification that literally puts you like a few steps ahead and really stretch yourself on what you can learn. I don't think it's enough to just incrementally get better at your job. We all do that. Like you don't have a job. Right. That's like a minimum expectation. Like, oh, the job, it's like go to a conference and learn something new once a year. No, this is like take a concerted effort, no matter what your role is, to figure out how AI will take you and put you several steps ahead just to really remain as relevant as you were in the past.
Yeah. So a couple of things there. Do you think that it's like a pendulum swing on the computer science degrees? Because 2-3 years ago, that was like the top degree. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And now coming out with what you were just saying, do you think it's going to like balance somewhere else? Like think about Klarna, right? Klarna said that they let go of all their support, that they're bringing humans back, calibrating, and it's just overhyped right now.
Yeah, it could be. But I mean, I think about AI exceeding wells or excelling or whatever the right word is. They excel and they exceed in that are basically rules driven. Yeah. Like writing code is one of the most rules driven things. Literally, if like you write one bit of code that doesn't work, your code doesn't work. It just breaks. And so it is not surprising also that like the entire world is powered by code. So AI has learned from all that code. So like things that I see Toby using right now, using natural language to then enhance his code, to validate his code, to like really like, I mean, he was showing me a few things about a week or two ago where it's like to be able to look at your code, like purely interact with it in natural language, I think you still need a degree in computer science to understand like what code is and like what different languages are and why some languages are better for certain topics or for certain tasks than others. But I mean, it's become so much more accessible. And so I think any job that is like very rules driven, I think will have the biggest application of AI for sure.
And then the other thing you're talking about, using not just learning more at your job, because that's what you're expected to do when you're in a career, right? But like seeing how you can get more education, more upskilling opportunities and so on. That's another great use case for using AI, right? Like we both use AI or ChatGPT tasks where every day or every week it gives you an update on whatever it is you want. Like say, this is my role. Give me ways that I can move further ahead in my career, that I can get more skills, more certification, more understanding, and have like work with that to give you the information so you aren't just analysis paralysis of, well, where the hell do I go? I don't even know where to start.
Yeah. And back to code, there was an interesting statistic this week that when actually it was Microsoft talking about the layoffs, at Microsoft, 30% of their code is written by AI now. And Meta says that they're moving to 50% very soon. So all that to say is like, find ways. And we've shared this a lot in presentations because you and I, we do a lot of public speaking. There's a slide that I know that we both use, which basically says like, this is not about optimism or pessimism. And people might think that I'm being pessimistic about this or like, and that creates more anxiety. And if that anxiety is that you don't want to do it, that's not the intent. It's not about optimism or pessimism. It's a realistic acceptance for a transformation that's already taken place. Like you can pretend this doesn't exist, but that will not help you in your career. Like if you want to go like milk cows and like raise chickens, that's totally fine. But if you want to stay in a professional field, that AI will influence your role. So it's not about necessarily the fear of replacing you, but we've said this for years, like AI won't replace fundraisers, but fundraisers who use AI will replace those that don't. And we're now seeing that a lot. Like some of the, probably the greatest number of questions that I get now are not from donor relations or prospect development. They're from fundraisers asking like, how can I use AI to do my job better? And there's lots of practical examples of that. I mean, you can use AI to like curate really thoughtful response to something or communicate an initiative that you have in your nonprofit in a way that will resonate with a person based on their kind of aptitude for different things, or like use Mallory Erickson's Practivated to like really refine and hone and practice your craft at asking for money.
Right.
So fundraisers, I think they thought they were the last ones that were ever going to use AI. It was like the untouchable because they were like the human to human thing was going to be forever. But the greatest number of questions I get now are from fundraisers. I'm like, how do I use this to like be better at my job?
And again, not to replace the human to human, right? But to augment, right? To allow you to have more, like feel more comfortable in that human, allow you to have more time for that human to human, right? So again, not replacing that role there. I think another thing, like all organizations, I mean, we're seeing this here at this conference, all organizations are looking to move further ahead with AI internally, right? Which means that all organizations really are looking for an AI leader,
right?
Or even a committee. So it's not even just trying to figure out how to use AI for yourself. But everyone listening has an opportunity to step in as that AI leader role and to like lead the charge for organization. All you need is curiosity. Right? Just curiosity, critical thinking, and being able to come in and say, well, let's start moving ahead with these steps. You don't need to know it all right now. But just something to start organizing people, ideas, conversations, moving down that path.
And I think that, I mean, it's so brilliant because we've seen examples of that. Like Andrew Cocktail up at Lucille Packard Children's Hospital, like is a law degree. Like he's not a like data scientist, but he's just super curious and excited. And he can galvanize other people to come around the table and bring their best to be like, hey, like who's experimenting with what's working, what's not working. And so we're seeing like some of these leaders emerge out of different organizations. And I think you're absolutely right. Like every person listening to the podcast can be that leader. There are not a lot of barriers to that right now because there's not a lot of them. You're not waiting for someone to retire because they're that person. So be that quote unquote interim chief AI evangelist within your organization. And we talk about this a lot and like, how do you succeed in that from a leadership perspective? If you're not the leader, but you're influencing from below and up, is to find one of like the smallest, like low stakes, but like important like fires that is going on in your organization. Like some small issue that is like low stakes, but high impact, and find a group of people together like, okay, let's identify what that one problem is. Let's figure out how to solve it. And when you solve it, guess what? You're going to get everyone's attention of like, oh, you solved this thing like of this task that nobody liked to do, or this thing that no one knew how to fix, and now you fixed it. Like, move on from there. And so, don't allow AI to be, and this is shared in one of our advisory council meetings recently, don't allow it to be the tool without a problem. Identify the problem first, and then allow it to be, again, low stakes, high impact as much as possible. Attack that problem and then kind of move outward from there.
Yeah. At Donor Search, we started doing like open office hours, right? So we'll just schedule a time and it's open to everybody that can come in. And it's not talking about use cases that people should use. When it's someone coming in saying, here's a problem that I have. And then we just kind of brainstorm and workshop it together as a group collectively, because it's not one person that has the right answer, right? We all have different perspectives on like how we've done it and how we treated it. So just have that. Just start that group, or even like have book clubs at organizations, right? Have an AI working club.
There is zero doubt in my mind the greatest limitation to whatever, I can't not use the word, to accelerating, advancing, being successful in AI is our own imagination. So of course, that's why we talk about curiosity a lot, but to your point, like, we're only as creative as how we're brought up. And like, some people are really inherently good at thinking like outside of the box, or kind of from a disruptive kind of thinking. If that's not you, use AI to be like, come up with some disruptive ideas around this problem. But I think it's even better, or in addition to, align yourself with other people and have them all do the same thing. If you get 4 or 5 people in the room that are all tasked with thinking about and then using AI to help them think about new and creative solutions to attack a seemingly difficult problem, you're going to get like the amplification times like 100x.
And the beautiful thing about like what we're facing here is, since AI is going to impact anyone and everyone, it's not like those people need to be the VPs, right? Or the leaders. It could be the person in the cubicle right next to you, right? It could be from any department, anywhere. It's just having that curiosity. And I think another part of it is time to be able to just kind of like sit and think and try and like being willing to explore. And we've talked about this before, like in that early exploratory stage, focus on the process more than the outcome. Right. Because the process, you can iterate. You focus just on the outcome. You're not going to like what you see at first. And then you're going to say, well, this thing sucks. I'm not going to try to.
I think that's so important. We ended up in the conversation about this yesterday, bringing everyone into that conversation, which is creating a routine for yourself where you can actually carve out that time. Because we are in a race for attention, right? The competition for connection is something I speak about 100 times a year. It is absolutely algorithmic driven. So the average person interacts with around 5,000 algorithms per day. Like, there is a deliberate war against your attention. And that's not like nonprofits. That's just like every organization that is essentially trying to use an algorithm to essentially get you to click, to like, to share, to swipe, to pause, to watch again, whatever it might be. And if you're not deliberate around creating boundaries and barriers around that, then you will just succumb to it. And it's so, your brain is just rewarding like that slot machine style, the infinite scroll and the like button. Your brain is just rewarding that thing. So you're just like, oh, I'll just do more of that. So I've created for myself, I have a separate place in my house. That's not my workplace, because now I work from home, which is weird for me. I used to have that boundary. That boundary's gone, which is probably true for a lot of people, is that I have a special room in my house that is basically like my thinking area. And so when I get up in the morning, it's still dark. I get up early, as you know, make my coffee. I go in that room. So it's basically a library. And that's where I think, and it might start with like catching up on, I have a couple of GPT prompts that actually deliver me news, essentially things that have happened at the intersection of AI and generosity. That gets my wheels turning. I might read a news article. I'll pause, I'll reflect, I'll make some notes. If I didn't have that time, I would just go from like my bed to my desk, and then just 12 hours later, just be like, oh yeah, I was really productive, but I really didn't, enrich my soul. I didn't really contribute nearly what I could have otherwise if I was like reflective. So I think people really, we know this because of COVID. I mean, this is not a new thing. Have to create boundaries about when they work and when they are not working, and create that space to think. I think thinking and critical thinking is probably one of the most attacked, but also one of the most important things that we as humans the humans that really excel and succeed in the AI world are the ones that have the discipline around critical thinking.
And that discipline is a no one can do this for you. You have to do it for yourself, right?
Yeah.
No one's going to come in and say, hey, I'm going to take away all your distractions to help you focus. Like, everyone wants more of your time, right? You want someone else's time. So you need to do this for yourself. I saw it. I'm a sucker for Kickstarter. I saw what they got Kickstarter.
Yeah.
It's like this little block that has Pepsi token.
Yeah.
And you set it up where they tell you to like put it in a far room or like a closet or even at home. So when you go to the office, you hit it and it'll shut down all apps that you select. So you can't open them up again until you hit it.
Oh, really?
So if you hit it,
you have to take a whole actual,
So like tech can be the problem, but can also be the solution.
Yeah.
You can set up iOS shortcuts to like not open an app when you're in a certain focus mode.
Right.
So that you don't have it. On my home screen, I have no apps. So it's just one more barrier for me to go to another page to go to something that's
and that's true. My apps are in a folder. Like I have Instagram still, but it's on my third screen and it's in a folder and notifications are turned off.
Yeah.
So I'm never kind of distracted by that thing. So yeah, I think to your point, and if you're like a young parent, you've got like kids and that's like crazy. You're like, I can't find, an hour a day just to think, then find other ways like that to like, really just eliminate the micro distractions that are just in front of you. And again, they're not by accident, they're deliberate. So you have to acknowledge the fact that these distractions aren't just something that like, just happened randomly. Like they're like proactive attempts to get your attention. And even if you don't think you are, like you're succumbing to some of them. So creating boundaries around that, I think is super powerful.
Yeah.
So, all right. So you got a lot more to do. I mean, a lot more in governance. I think we'll just wrap up on the governance side because there's going to be a whole day of governance tomorrow, is that there was a congressional hearing. It was basically how the U.S. dominance over China, which is actually a subcommittee at the congressional level. There was a special hearing last Friday. I wrote about this. I wrote a LinkedIn post around it as I found it fascinating. An hour and 45 minutes goes by. Number one, I have zero confidence in any congressional leader to really come up with anything meaningful on how to regulate AI, which goes to one. I mean, one of them actually showed a video of the Matrix, like a 2-minute, and they only given 5 minutes to speak. So like a 2-minute, clip of the Matrix. And it wasn't like, it wasn't even a thoughtful one. It was just one of a fighting scene. Like I just don't even understand that. So it's not about like fear mongering. But I think at the end of the day, we actually came to this conclusion a few weeks ago. It was not just a new conclusion, but that in absence of regulation, at least if you're listening to this in the US, in absence of regulation, trust will be won and lost at the sector level. That means for you at an organization, you as an individual, it'll be up to you to use AI in ways that instill and protect trust, that promote, protect trust. And so that I think is one of the biggest takeaways. When you have tech leaders like Jack Clark from Anthropic basically saying, please regulate us, like that should say something. That won't happen, at least for this administration, most likely. It will be at the state level. So the state, actually the big beautiful bill was taken out. Federal will not regulate AI. Nonprofits are going to be on their own to regulate AI in what state they're in and what state they're actually using. It's very unclear in how this is going to work. It's going to be super cumbersome. So at the moment today, it's essentially like for every person in the nonprofit sector that operates in the currency of trust is to be thoughtful, to use AI because you need to stay relevant and your missions deserve it, but do it in a way that is thoughtful and that puts donors at the center of everything that you do. And those are not difficult things to do. I think if you're just a little reflective in ways to like want to use technology that can promote and protect trust, to do this in a way that feels it's aligned with my own values as an individual, as values of an organization, and do that. And I think it's the last part of that is like, while there's been lots of surveys showing that very, very few organizations have AI governance policies, and most of them don't have a chief AI officer, is to go to fundraising.ai, download, which you helped create, the template for AI framework, the governance framework, download it. And I actually shared that you're going to be doing this. You don't even know this yet at the Fundraising AI Summit in September. Oh, good. Is actually, I just thought it would be awesome to do a live demo of like, literally does not take long. Like take that framework, add a little bit about your values as an organization, and literally like lickety split, you'll have an AI governance. So in all of this and all this conference and all these things that are going on, I think it starts with like being able to sleep at night to say, look, we've thought about what AI, can and should do within our organization, to have little, not guardrails, but directional guidance on what that looks like, and then go on from there.
Yeah. I'm excited for that. Going back to what you're saying about like making donors the center, that ties back to a lot of things that we mentioned here, but show me the incentive and restrict outcome.
Right.
Things need to change at a much larger level for your organization to prioritize relationships over transactions.
Yeah.
Right. When the goals year after year are dollars raised, it's hard to
You're
prioritize a donor.
Yeah.
Right. You prioritize a gift, and then you just move on to the next gift. So something needs to change. We've talked about this many times. Like, focus on retention rates. Focus on 3-year rolling averages. Things that look more long term. You know, for sustainable fundraising practices, and not just in the door, out the door. Focus on the high wealth.
That's one thing. I mean, huge plug. Obviously, I'm wearing Virtuous swag as part of my contractual employment agreement.
Tattoos coming soon,
joking, but I actually just like the swag. I mean, who doesn't want to wear a shirt that says generosity across the top? And honestly, this shirt causes so many conversations. Like, it also, you know what it does for me? When I'm at Starbucks, like, I'm wearing the shirt, I become a representative, not of Virtuous, but of generosity. So like, I'm inclined to pay it forward. And I love doing that. And it also just like, I'm in elevators or in airplanes, they're like, I love your shirt. Like, it's just a cool thing.
You can't be wearing that.
Yeah. I mean, you can be, but like, but I don't know. It keeps me accountable on that. One of the things that Virtuous I love that's built into the CRM is essentially that actually retention at all levels is tracked, but also donor lifetime value. And it was funny because we were doing this demo of Virtuous. So it's actually the Responsive Nonprofit Summit. There were Virtuous customers saying, oh, I didn't know we could do that. And it's actually built into the software, which is, to your point, if we don't change what success looks like, we're going to continue on this like hamster wheel. And guess what? It's going to go faster and faster and faster.
Yeah.
Like that pace is going to continue. The expectations are going to grow and slow that whole thing down.
Yeah.
So what's your tip of the week?
Tip of the week, a couple actually.
Oh, okay, good. All right.
So one, I think one of the last sessions or one of the last episodes, I talked about how I had AI just create my prompts for me, right? Or enhance my prompts for me. And I had for a long time in my custom instructions, it was whenever I give you a prompt, make it better and show me how you made it better and then move along, right? And use that prompt, right? Well, then I started a prompt saying, I want a prompt that helps make my prompt better, right? So I took that and made that better. And then I put that in my custom instructions. But I find like I have AI, it knows so much about me, but also knows how I'm using it. So I asked it, what are my gaps in how I'm using AI? Like, where am I missing the boat? What should I be doing differently? And how can I just reframe how I'm interacting with it?
Yeah.
And it gave me some steps. And then it said, put in your custom instructions, like critical thinking, like where ChatGPT will not just say, hey, do you want me to put the LinkedIn carousel? Have you ever thought about using in this way as a result of whatever my prompt is, right? So like asking it to tell you what you're not doing.
Right.
Yeah, not just how can I do it better, but like, you know how I'm doing it now. What am I missing? What are my patterns that I'm kind of falling into? That's one.
Okay.
Another one is not so much like hands-on and practical, but like if you are an organization using a vendor providing you with the Gen AI tool, right? And we're not talking about the ones who create the Gen AI tools. So not Anthropic, not OpenAI, but you have a vendor that's providing you a SaaS AI product. Ask them what tool they're using. Because chances are they didn't build it themselves, right?
Very
they
good
should
chance.
be transparent about this. Like, it's not something that should be hiding from you. And also ask them how they fine-tuned it, right? Because you are inherently taking whatever risks they've applied in their fine-tuning and whatever they chose to use as a model. But if they aren't sharing that with you, then you're going in blind.
Yeah. You know, what's interesting too, is there's a lot of AI vendors that are repackaging whatever it be, like Anthropic or GPT, and they'll tell you that they're not even tuning those models. They're just layering lots of prompts on top of them. And so end of the day, like if you're going to tune a model, you're actually going to the model, like in an open source model like Llama, you can actually adjust weightings. And so like you get an outcome more specific to what you're looking for, which obviously pros and cons. We've talked about open source a lot, but they're literally just applying like a crap ton of prompts on top that are essentially creating guardrails on what it can and can't do. And that works to an extent, but at the end of the day, like I told you, I got into like this massive argument with my GPT about M dashes. And I mean, constantly I'm like code words for like hashtag pineapple every time it creates M dashes. And it's like, oh, my bad. This one's on me. Thanks for keeping me accountable. And I'm like, what the hell? And so all to say, and I have prompts that are built structurally in my custom settings and in those instructions, like hashtag pineapple, that should never be an issue, but continues to be an issue. So I worry about nonprofit AI vendors or vendors that are using generative AI and basically packaging it as a new tool that are built on prompts. And those prompts are very weak.
Yeah.
And they break and they don't adapt as the model grows too. You know, we know that there's like huge problems between like even various models with, if you use like 4.0 or 3 mini or even 4.0 and 4.0 with research, if you're in the single thread, if you're in 4.0 doing something, then you apply deep research to it and then try to go back, it will have no recollection of what it did when it went into deep research in the same thread. That's a huge problem. So you literally have to copy and paste everything that did in its own thread back for itself because it can't see it. So there's major blind spots. So like, I think that's great advice. I think my ponder of the week is, for me, it's one thing to read and hear about like Microsoft laying off all these people, but it's another to reflect on what that means for the individual. So like, I have like a deep remorse and empathy for those, like those are individuals and you know, my story. So my son got recruited to AWS right outside of college. And this is not a bash on AWS. We love them and they're good friends, but the cycles of like hiring and layoffs. So he gets poached right out of grad school, stock options, sign-on bonuses, all the things. Great job. He was there a year and they laid off 18,000 people. He got laid off 3 days before their wedding. And I saw him like literally 3 days before he was getting married, get text messages from his coworkers saying, I can't log into my computer. Can you? All of them the jobs were obliterated. And so all that say is like, I feel like while we're talking about regulation, we're talking about like who's doing what country's ahead, you know, the arms race, quote unquote, the perceived arms race, how you perceive arms race against China. None of it matters. It all comes down to humanity and the impact that AI will play on humanity. And so I think like all those things, like, sure, they're fine. They're interesting. We need to be apprised of what's going on so that we can prepare and we can upskill in the right ways and kind of go where zig when other people are zagging, whatever it is that helps us get ahead. But at the end of the day, this comes down to people. And I think we need to apply AI in ways that will bring people together. And we need to be really empathetic to people that are unsure or afraid or want to, but don't know how. And so I don't know, I'm really just reflective of humanity at this point. And I'm like, arms race, whatever. I think AI will absolutely change the course of humanity. There's zero chance that does not happen. And I think this is a time for us to like really learn what it means to be empathetic. And it probably goes back to spending time thinking or meditating or praying or whatever it might be so that we are more prepared as humans to be able to do that.
And prioritizing relationships, not just donor relationships, but like interpersonal relationships with family, with friends, like those things that give you joy, give you life, right? But also like put the tech away, focus on human relationship as much as possible.
Yeah, create boundaries, stay off your device. And even, that can be, again, going back to the boundary side. I've gotten to a point where I go to an airport now and it's a trigger that I don't sit on my device. Like I actually like look around, bring a book or a magazine and read it. But like, I like now created this little buffer zone because it's so easy. And this really caught me one day because I was like at an airport and I just was like standing up and I was grazing across the entire like terminal and like 95% of the people were looking down. No one is looking at each other. They're not talking to each other. I mean, couples, kids, parents, all that. So it's become a trigger for me of like, I spend a lot of time in airports. It's like, that's a place now that I just go. And I find it's really interesting in Europe. By the way, if you go to a coffee shop, like people are conversing. People are like literally there. I mean, they'll bring books, they'll have notebooks, like handwritten. I was the only person on the panel on Monday that actually didn't have a handwritten notebook. I was the only person. It was like fascinating. So I think we need to go back to a bit of that and create some of those boundaries. And I get it. People are busy and they're taking care of their kids and doing other things, but there are opportunities for you to reconnect with what it means to be human.
Yeah. Just set some time aside, 5 minutes, that go to 10, 15, but start building that practice.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I think we covered a lot of ground in 41 minutes. So awesome. Good to be here with you. We've got a couple more days. We're going to report back obviously on those other days on the next podcast, but hope everybody, thanks for tuning in and thanks for doing what you do on behalf of our sector, on behalf of humanity. And like Scott and I always say, like if we can be of assistance in your AI transformation journey, the individual level at the corporate level, this is good humans working with good humans. So thanks for tuning in.
Yeah. Thanks for listening, everybody.